Welcome back to a wet Oulton Park. We are ready for the first of 3 races here for the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. It is round 7, and there, back into the championship, Mike Bushell. He is at the wheel of the Power Max Racing Vauxhall Astra. We've not seen Power Max Racing thus far this season. The team is back, at least with one car. Mike is heading for an engineering role with them. What better way to understand how to engineer the car than to race it? He topped free practice 1 yesterday. It's a bit of a lottery in terms of when you've got your lap time in against the conditions. But it's good to have Mike back, especially as he's been suffering from myocarditis over the winter. Green flag is waved then. The cars set off onto the first of 2 formation laps. Although they did do some wet running yesterday on safety grounds, it has been decided that they will have 2 warming up laps, and the cars accelerate away now with the drivers suddenly discovering where the grip levels may or may not be. Let's look at the grid going into this first 15-lap race. Rory Butcher will start from pole position, and Josh Cook is going to line up second on this 1x1 grid. It's Colin Turkington starting third, and Matt Neal, board number 700 this weekend, will start fourth ahead of teammate Dan Camish, and Jake Hill, hoping for better luck this weekend, he will go from 6th ahead of Tom Chilton and Brands Hatch winner Tom Oliphant 8th. 9th on the grid, Adam Morgan at the team's home circuit, and Chris Smiley in the new Hyundai starts 10th ahead of Ash Sutton, and Michael Crease, who took his best ever qualifying result yesterday. Senna Proctor is 13th, Tom Ingram 14th on the grid, a track at which he's never had a touring car podium. Mike Bushell goes from 15th, Ollie Jackson, who went well at Brands, is next on the grid. The 9th row is where you find Carl Boardley and Stephen Jelly, the 2 1 Series BMWs side by side. The 10th row, Jack Goff and Sam Osborne, Volkswagen and Honda represented there. Next on the grid will come Aidan Moffat in the second of the Infinities. James Gornall, one of the BTCC rookies, is next ahead of returning Andy Neate and rookie Jack Butel in the second of the Mercedes. Next will come Ollie Brown. Nicholas Hamilton lines up alongside him, and Bobby Thompson completes the grid, having had an off on his outlap, scooping up about 45 kilos of the Oulton Park lawn in the front, having to park the car before it overheated, and he comes down the pit lane, having just got onto wet tyres, and behind him, in front of Bobby Thompson is James Gornall. So you've got James Gornall and Bobby Thompson starting then at the rear of the grid, giving up the original grid positions. This is how the ballast looks. Remember, it's championship weight going into the first race, so 60 kilos if you lead the championship, that's Colin Turkington. 6 kilos if you're 10th, that's Matt Neal. If you're not in the top 10, you don't carry any, and you go through that top 10 with incremental losses of 6 kilos all the way through. So that shows you that the last to carry weight is 18th on the grid, Stephen Jelly. A winner here last year in race 3, remember. He inherited the win after Jake Hill's penalty, but struggling a bit yesterday with Stephen Jelly. Right, it looks decidedly murky out there, does it not? The cars coming through to their second lap. And let's try and have a quick word, if we can, with Tom Ingram before we go racing. Tom, let's get yesterday out of the way first. Bad luck with traffic getting in the way.
Yeah, yesterday. What happened yesterday? We launched a new filter. That's what happened yesterday. Yeah, it wasn't that great. With traffic, of course. It's mostly what I was on TV, so hence why we're right down the park. I mean, I think we realistically had the pace to be sort of top 3, top 4. As it turns out, we're down here in 15th, or now we're giving us to 14th with the penalty for Bushell. So, yeah, not ideal, but we'll just got to try and fight back as the day goes through.
OK, what about the circuit now? We're looking at this heavy rain. There's more in the local area. And Oulton Park, because of the trees, tends not to dry out quickly. And incidentally, Carl Boardley is off the road on the formation lap. So it's clearly nasty out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'll be able to see, ironically, you'll be able to see a little bit more than I can, because I can only see what is just a bit of spray ahead of me. So, yeah, it's difficult. This place has never been known for its huge amounts of grip in the way, has it? So, we'll see. We're all going to try and get through the first lap, I think, is going to be the key bit. But certainly, you know, as I'm coming down now towards sort of his and Nick Brook, that's where it always seems to be fairly tricky, fairly slippy, all through the slow speed stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tricky one today, and especially with starting right back here. Yeah, I mean, I'm in the danger zone, and I don't like being in the danger zone.
Tom and Tim here. Did you have a chance to put any kind of a wet setup on the car, or have you literally just put the wets on?
We've not had huge amounts of time, if I'm honest, Tim, so no, it's difficult, but everyone's in the same boat, so It's yeah, we're all in the same boat. You only get a few minutes on the grid to make any changes that you want to make, and if you have to make them. So yeah, we're all in the same boat. We've all been throwing some wet tyres on, and this is the first real wet lap I've just done. It's just what you've seen. So yeah, it's tricky for us all, but that's why it's going to be that's going to be quite an interesting one, I think.
Well, Tom, like I say, Carl Boardley is off the road. That car might need moving, so whether we have a delay before the start, we'll wait and see, which of course means it might dry or it might get heavier, but we'll leave you to it. Good luck.
Currently rubbernecking as I go past, which is a fairly big one, so yeah, I think we might have a bit of a delay. But thank you very much, guys. I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, Tom. Tom Ingram then, and you saw in the background as they came through Lodge Corner, Carl Boardley, who's gone straight on at the end of the first of those 2 laps. That shows you how nasty it is out there.
Yeah, I mean, what he may well have done is not forgotten to change it is a delayed start. It may have just not changed his brake bias, because it's a very easy place to lock up your front brakes, and once you lock them up, you're just sailing on straight on. The drivers need to move the bias back. We talked about how much braking's done on the front in the dry yesterday. In the wet, you want to split the difference between the front and the rear much more evenly. He may not have moved the brake bias back.
Now, I have to declare a little bit of local interest in all of this, because home is about 12 miles away, and Mrs. Addison is telling me that there's a much heavier shower currently there, and the weather seems to be heading in this direction. The delayed start board is there so that Carl Boardley's car can be dragged out of the way, but although it looks wet now, there could be even heavier rain heading our way. Well, with a delayed start, we could be sort of halfway, 3/4 of the way through the race before the next big shower hits us.
Yeah, I just hope the teams who didn't really expect this have put all the anti-fog on the inside of the windscreen and prepped the cars for wet weather, because they weren't expecting this. This landed literally as they went out the pits.
Absolutely. Tell you what, Alton Park doesn't half feel different this weekend at a touring car meeting without spectators, because normally, of course, we have sunshine and we have huge crowds, and we look forward to crowds being back. It also feels rather different this weekend, because for the first time in about 20 years, circuit commentator Alan Hyde is absent. Alan is not firing quite on all cylinders just at the moment, and the BTCC paddock wishes little Al a speedy recovery, and we look forward to him being back with us, as indeed we look forward to all fans being back with us as well. But it does feel a bit different this weekend, Al, so you are much missed. Right, start delayed board. This will account for why Carl Boardley is in the gravel. So look to the top of the picture, look at Lodge. He arrived with some speed.
He certainly did. Well, he managed to get the car turned a little bit, so it went into the tyres sideways rather than head first. So hopefully he'll have spread the damage, if you like, the load down the left-hand side, and it won't be too badly damaged. But he did arrive at a hell of a lick there for a formation lap, where you're just supposed to be finding out the grip of the track. He really didn't need to be going that quick, and that was the first lap as well, not the second.
Very true. Right, so Carl Boardley and Team Hard will have some work to do once they get that car back, and we will be back at Alton Park the other side of this break. Back at Alton Park, we will have, when we go racing, 14 laps rather than 15, because they'll have another formation lap around to the grid. Marshals down at Lodge Corner have been busy retrieving Carl Boardley's BMW that went off the road with some speed, it must be said, at the end of the first of the formation laps, and you can see the damage done, not so much to the car, but to the barriers. Posts have been taken down, tyre barrier damage, all of that needs fixing before we go racing. This would have been the first race of the day for anything, so it's set the whole timetable back a little bit, and the track staff and the marshals are hard at work to try to get us in business as soon as possible. That means, of course, we have this delay, but while we wait the start of the race to be given, there, Mike Bushell on the grid. I mentioned a little while ago that Mike was back in the championship. Good to have him here. And yesterday, after the qualifying activity, Steve Ryder caught up with championship returnee Mike Bushell.
Mike Bushell, welcome back to the championship, and welcome back Power Max Racing as well. Just explain the arrangement, the deal that's brought you all back.
It was a bit last minute, to be fair. Sort of got a text from Adam of Power Max Racing on Sunday night saying, could you give me a call? I didn't really think much of it, and come Tuesday, Wednesday, it was like, right, we're going racing. And yeah, it's a nice surprise, because yet again circumstances meant that I've missed this season in full. But yeah, to have two race weekends now, I can give some valuable feedback on the car with my engineering experience, and yeah, just try and do a good job.
You were pretty quick in free practice this morning. That must have been a boost.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love this track anyway, but I find the damp to be a good leveller, and yeah, just threw caution to the wind and went for it in FP1. FP2 was good, but I think I got the most out of that early on, and I kind of expected qualifying to be where we were, just that I really couldn't get any more out of FP2.
Yeah, and they stung you with a bit of ballast, which is a bit harsh, isn't it?
Yeah, regulations are regulations, but I'll just be keen to have a good, clean race one, and I can chuck that in the bin.
Yeah, you were battling some health issues at the start of the year. Are you is all that under control?
Yeah, I've got a clean MOT now, which is good. Yeah, that was a major knock, and I say that's the second time I've had that. So kind of makes you value every day you got, really, when you're laying there in intensive care, but it was all good now.
Absolutely. Well done. And the future beyond Knockhill for yourself and the team, you will still have some involvement.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Power Max Racing have got a long-term plan to work with the drivers they choose as such, and I think they've got a few more lined up after me at Knockhill, but I'm going to stay on hand for engineer and driver coaching. So yeah, build a good relationship and see what the future brings.
Well, it's great to have you back. Enjoy yourself tomorrow.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Cheers, Mike.
Thank you.
Mike Bushell, good to have him back on the grid. It was a heart infection, myocarditis, that struck him while he was away skiing, and he did, as he said, have to spend a good few days in intensive care. So it is good that he is not only fit and well, but fit and well enough to go racing, and we'll see what he can do from his grid position of 15th. He was given a penalty, in fact, yesterday. He lost his best lap time for lighting up the tyres in the pit lane on exit, so for being a bit overzealous, he had his best lap time taken off him. That's why he and Tom Ingram effectively have switched around on the grid, because his second best lap time is the one that he had to count for the grid position. But let's see how he fares in the race. Now, there is the Cole Boardley BMW returned. It's the trackside furniture that's the focus of attention right now, though, Tim.
Yeah, very much so. Interesting. The rain has actually stopped now. During the interval, I was listening to Tom Ingram's chat with his engineer, Spenny, and they were saying, are there any changes we can make on the grid? Well, they could make changes as long as they didn't lift the car up on the stands. So they were discussing perhaps doing some roll bar changes, but I think they've left it as it is, but they're thrown a bit by the weather now.
But right now, Tom is busy talking to the engineers. We can eavesdrop on the conversation. I was going to try and talk to Tom again, but I think they're now deliberating what to do about tyres and whether they think it's worth a gamble. So we'll just leave them to it for the moment. I don't want to get in the way of a conversation between driver and team. Alton Park, great driver circuit, very challenging indeed. And as you look at the barriers being repaired, the rain has stopped. There is more in the local area that could strike yet, so who knows which is going to be the right gamble. Even the wildlife are burying their heads in the water rather than having to confront this head on.
The longer we wait, obviously the drier the circuit's going to get now.
Ah, but the closer the next shower
That's
gets,
true,
you see.
yes. Can we have our next weather warning, please, David?
I shall ring home at once, Tim.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's fairly breezy, so the road in certain places will dry, but of course there are elements of Alton Park, like Druids, that are always hidden under the trees, a bit like the Grand Prix circuit at Brands Hatch, and they don't dry so quickly because they're always under the trees and the air and the sunshine never gets them. Yeah,
but there's no standing water really to talk of, and the ambient temperature is quite warm, so it should dry fairly quickly. You know, had they started the race as it was, I think they'd be okay, but just maybe get someone take a gamble now near the back, I don't know.
Mrs. Addison, who I feel we ought to give a microphone to at this rate, says it's stopped raining at home now. So that means there's another shower coming, but it's a fairly short one.
That's the shower she's had?
Yes.
Okay.
But we haven't had that yet.
Okay,
yes.
Okay. And it's definitely coming from that direction?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely,
okay.
Yes. Are you arguing with my wife?
No.
Right.
No.
Better people have tried and failed. So the circuit for the moment remains quiet. The teams are ready to go. And as the track staff are busily working away, let's just head out into the elements and rejoin Steve Ryder.
Yes, and we can give an even more accurate weather summary here. We're down alongside Deer Leap. You can see the track actually drying in front of you, can't you?
Yeah, it is. Like Tim and David were saying, there are patches of bits of dry just here and there, but the problem you've got is, you'll just have like this Scalextric track effect where if there is a dry line, if anyone gambles for slicks, they'll have to come off the dry line to overtake on the wet line. So, but the other way around, the wet tyres will need cooling and they can't stay on the dry line. So it could be an interesting one. I've just looked at my weather app and it's saying in the next 10 minutes there's going to be quite a medium to heavy bit of rain. So it's going to be a real tricky one. It's whether you take that gamble. Yeah. We've seen at Silverstone, Steve, last year where people were driving around on slicks and I couldn't even see the screen. So, the Goodyear tyres are pretty good, in the slick condition. But, hey, listen, it's a proper gamble, mate. A lot of different track changes as well, so we'll see.
I think the most exciting thing that's likely to happen in the next 2 minutes is that canopy dropping its entire water onto your head. It is threatening as much as any imminent rain shower. We've had a view of what's been going on up at Lodge there, and Carl Boardley did a proper job up there, didn't he?
Oh, it was a big hit. That one series went in hard. The car actually lifted up off the floor, didn't it? But I think the problem is, as soon as I seen that, you have posts behind the barriers, and the Oulton Park team have come out with the JCB. They'll look at it and they just cannot afford to have another hit on that barrier, if those posts aren't properly put in. So they look like they've took a post out and they're just knocking it back in with the JCB. So, fair play to them. You can't have another car go in there and the barrier collapse. So everything's got to be right. And obviously the guys have just got to get on with it now and see if they can get it done. It'll be about, I don't know, it looks like a 10-minute job done, doesn't it? So hopefully we can get going.
Yeah, but in 10 minutes' time on the grid, how will the philosophy of race setup and race tactics change?
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? Like the guys were saying, then you can try and make a roll bar adjustment. You can soften the dampers off so they'll take, a bit more load and the weight of the car in the wet conditions. But if it starts drying out, you might want to stay with what you've got. So, the best cars, the best chassis on the grid will not have massive changes between wet and dry setups. You always want something that can do both. You can make little tweaks here and there, but interesting to hear what Tim was saying about Tom Ingram's chat between his engineer. So it's so horrible. The guys at the front of the grid, they'll have to stay on wets. They'll have to, in my opinion. But everyone at the back will have a go, maybe use a chancer like we've seen at Brands Hatch in the past, and the guys will just try and come in, do a bit of slick tyre change and see how they get on. But whatever happens, it'll be this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, Rory Butcher on pole position. I mean, it won't be helping him because part of him would have been thinking anyway, what can possibly go wrong this weekend?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? And I think for Rory as well, he's got 30 kilos on board, and to be fair, the guys with the heavy cars, it's not a bad thing for them in the wet. So Rory might not mind this, if I'm honest with you, with his 30 kilos, because when you've got a quite heavy car and you're at the front of the grid, you just feel like you're going to have a train of cars behind you because the weight is slowing you down. So they will probably not mind the wet, your Turkingtons, your Butchers, Dan Camish, and Ashley Sutton. I tell you what, if this stays wet, Ashley Sutton, watch out for him, and I'm sure Tim and David will agree with me. Ashley Sutton, with 54 kilos on, starting in 11th place, I think he could really, really go forward. Good wet weather driver. That car seems brilliant in the wet. It's got good traction. It's everything you need. So have a look out for him. But yeah, Rory Butcher, I think he's that good. I just think he doesn't matter.
And also a little way back down the grid is Tom Oliphant, who for a brief moment in all the competitive pandemonium of qualifying yesterday, for a brief moment he was on pole position. Dropped back a little bit. He'll be so eager to build on the success he had at Brands Hatch, that breakthrough win in the reverse grid race. And what can he do from the position he's in on the grid? But he's eager to get racing again as much as anybody else on the grid. And I talked to him yesterday about the effect of that Brands Hatch win. Tom Oliphant, welcome to Oulton Park. It's probably just as well we had a 2-week break after Brands Hatch. It gave you a little time to calm down after all the emotions of that reverse grid race win. How were the next few days for you?
Oh, well, no, really good fun, actually. Obviously having a couple of weeks break meant that I could really enjoy it. We went on holiday down to Cornwall for a couple of days and played some golf. So that was always really nice. And yeah, it was just nice to have a little bit of a break. Obviously, the first two came really, really quickly back to get back, and then now we've got Oulton Park and Knockhill back to back. So it's always good to have a little bit of a break.
How much of a personal breakthrough was it for you?
Oh, massive. It was a real dream come true, in honesty. You know, I think everybody that aspires to be a touring car driver obviously wants to win a race and obviously wants to win the championship. And you know, I don't think drivers who haven't raced in it before don't quite realise how difficult it is and how many things need to go your way to get that maiden win. Last year, I felt like I came quite close a few times and just got a bit of bad luck, or I made a mistake. So it was really, really nice to sort of get that monkey off my back, and especially in the way I did it, you know, with Ash on me for 14 laps, it really sort of made it worth it, and I definitely felt like I earned it.
Well, that's exactly it, because reverse grid races are so often perceived as just a lottery, but this was a proper race win. The pressure that Ash Sutton put you under was quite extreme.
No, definitely, and we lined up for the third race with some really terrible tyres from the first two. Really, we didn't have the right tyres for the race meeting. In terms of qualifying, we lost a couple through rippling, so it meant that, you know, I didn't have the same confidence on the tyres over the first half of the race that I think Ash did. But yeah, I didn't want to inherit my first win or anything like that. I wanted to earn it, and the fact is that Ash was on me from lap 2. You know, he came from 10th, I came from 6th. You know, we had some good overtakes, and then we had a cracking race for the whole of the race. And yeah, I loved every minute of it. Obviously, afterwards, throughout it, I was a little bit. You know, I just wished that he would back off a little bit, but make it a little easier. But no, really, really pleased with that. And yeah, I'm still living on cloud nine, to be quite fair. Just got to focus now on what's to come.
And has it changed your perspective of what you might achieve, both here at Oulton Park and for the rest of the season?
Not really. Coming into the season, I wanted to achieve, you know, the average of top 6 in every race, and that should put me close to the title challenge. You know, Donington, I achieved that. I averaged 6 exactly, and then Brands slightly better. So getting the race win is a real big positive and something I really enjoyed. But the focus hasn't changed. It's still to pick up, you know, 32, 35 points around, and come the penultimate round and then Brands Hatch the last race. We've got to be in the mix to be in with a chance.
Great stuff. Keep it going, Tom.
Thank you very much.
It was a good win for Tom Oliphant, and it was a very popular win, and he got that proverbial monkey off his back as well, finally proving that he can do it. He's, of course, in one of the Plum drives, but on very old tyres, well-used tyres too. It was a great effort to put in. Just going back to Carl Boardley, just thinking about that drama, not so much in the immediate future, but what it does for the team. Team Hard and Motorbase, remember, Kent-based teams. Next stop, Knock Hill. So they are 2 squads that don't go back to base. They will get to Knock Hill on Tuesday and effectively set up and engineer the cars, prepare the cars ready for Knock Hill on site rather than going back to the workshop. So they've had to try and plan ahead, bring 2 of everything. The last thing they needed was a damaged car, especially the BMW in a sense, of which they've only got the one. At least the Volkswagens at Team Hard, there's multiples for even more parts. So hopefully the damage to that not that bad. It has started raining again at Oulton Park. This is going to be a real lottery of a race of a day, I suspect now, Tim.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, actually. It always just throws that little cat amongst the pigeons. Sometimes you get somebody come out from nowhere and show their wet weather prowess. Will certainly make for a good race. And I mean, usually you would say front-wheel drive cars are slightly better in the wet, but as Paul said, we've seen Ash Sutton do some stunning performances in the rear-wheel drive cars. There he is. You can see him warming his tyres up. Lots of aggressive car action, as always, with Ash Sutton. Didn't quite hook his lap up yesterday. Just going back to Tom Oliphant, in fairness to him, he actually set a lap time that was good enough for 3rd on the grid yesterday, but lost it through track limits. But that would have been a great, well, still a great lap with 48 kilos on board.
Let's just remind ourselves how they line up. Rory Butcher and Josh Cook for the front of the grid here at Oulton Park. Second row is going to be Colin Turkington and Matt Neal. Dan Camish will start 5th. Jake Hill for company alongside him. Then you've got Tom Chilton and Tom Oliphant on the 4th row of the grid, ahead of Adam Morgan and Chris Smiley. Next up will be Ash Sutton. Michael Crease with his best ever qualifying, 12th, ahead of Senna Proctor. Tom Ingram, 15th, but with a penalty for the man that's next on the grid, Mike Bushell, they effectively were reversed. Ollie Jackson has a bit of work to do after that great Brands showing. He will start 16th, ahead of Carl Boardley. Well, Carl, sadly, now seeming to be a non-starter. Stephen Jelly will be there, but the Carl Boardley BMW with damage ain't going to start. Jack Goff is 19th on the grid, and Sam Osborne will start 20th. Then you get Aidan Moffat and James Gornall. Aidan could be one to watch, in fact, in these conditions. He always goes well in greasy track conditions. You've got Andy Neate and Jack Butel starting next on the grid. Ford and Mercedes ahead of Ollie Brown, Volkswagen and teammate Nicholas Hamilton lining up alongside the grid, completed by Bobby Thompson, who, if he can bring some pace out of that Audi, should be another man making progress. 14 laps, we're one off the original duration because of this extra formation lap round to the grid. A very treacherous track indeed. Remember, as far as ballast is concerned, it's championship weight, so Colin Turkington on 60, the man on pole position, Rory Butcher, on 30, and the man between them, Josh Cook, doesn't have any extra weight, so he could be very much the man to watch in this. The progress of Colin Turkington off the line is going to be fascinating, and indeed those that don't make errors, because there's going to be a certain amount of self-preservation required over the next 14 laps.
Yeah, there certainly will. It'd be interesting to see off the line as well how the rear-wheel drive cars get off the line. In the wet, it's even harder to get a front-wheel drive car hooked up. So the front two are going to have to do an extremely effective blocking job. Otherwise, Turkington's going to be through.
So the cars over the line, and are they going to be given 2 warming-up laps again? They did qualify in the dry. They did do one of the free practice sessions in the wet, so it's not like they've not had any wet running, but on safety grounds, then I think they will be afforded the luxury of another lap just to make sure that the drivers know where the puddles are, especially given that they've been sitting on the grid for quite a while. So, in terms of predicting the winner, is there any science in this, or is it just tossing a coin? They are on the grid, we are good to go, and a quick prediction, Tim.
I'm going to say Turkington, because I think he'll get past them on the start.
Let's see, because round 7 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship is set to get underway. The last handful of cars head to the grid, some at the bottom of Deer Leap, a long way back, of course, and it's a stretched grid with it being a 1-by-1 stagger. Everybody is back. Carl Boardley, the one that's absent after his dramas on the original formation lap. 5-second board is displayed. Who is going to get the best start? Let's find out as the lights go red. Lights out, it's blast off. Good start by Turkington. Lots of wheel spin for Josh Cook. He's going to get mugged by Matt Neal and by Dan Camish. Tom Oliphant's on his toes on the outside line. Rory Butcher leads into Old Hall Corner for the first time. Butcher leads. Turkington right behind him. Tries to get the switch back. Oliphant's up to 3rd. Absolute dynamite start from Oliphant as they head down towards Cascades, and Stephen Jelly has got nowhere. I'm afraid he needs push power from the marshals to get him out of harm's way, but Butcher leads at Cascades.
Well, I have to say that was a brilliant start by Butcher. He virtually matched Turkington and held him to the inside, held the track to the inside. That was a brilliant start. Cook was the big loser, although now he's coming down the outside.
He's on his toes, isn't he, as he tries to go around the outside of Dan Camish there. You can see how wet and nasty the conditions are. There's lots of spray as they plunged down through Cascades. So Rory Butcher leads the way. 30 kilos plays the 60 of the BMW. Oliphant is 3rd. Josh Cook crawling all over him in 4th position. But Rory Butcher has got the best of the visibility, but equally he is the first man on every lap and every corner to find what the grip level is like.
Yeah, I hope they didn't adjust their settings back towards the dry when it stopped raining on the grid, because this is full wet, absolutely. Lots of spray coming up, but a great first lap so far. Jelly has actually rejoined from the pit lane, so they got his car off the grid and going again. But so he's going to be down just in front. There he goes.
So a long way back is Stephen Jelly. It's going to put him at the back of the grid for race 2 as Josh Cook makes a move to the inside of Tom Oliphant. That's the 3rd place. He's going to go through, gets the line on the inside, runs Oliphant out wide. The BMW though gets the drive out of the corner. Josh Cook can't quite stay alongside, ready to make a move on the inside at Old Hall. He's also got to defend from Dan Camish, look, number 27 there, who is next in the queue. But Cook up the inside into Old Hall. He is determined to take the place, but great defence this by Oliphant.
Yeah, this is an angry Cook. This is the driving of a man that knew he lost out at the start. He was brave round the outside of Camish into Island Hairpin on lap 1, and it worked out. And he's really looking like he intended to try and fight for the win, and is annoyed with himself for making the bad start.
Tom Ingram's gained a bit of progress. He's up to 11th. Also, Ollie Jackson is making progress. He's up into 14th place. But Cook is under attack from Cammish. Remember, Cook has got no weight in that car, so in theory it should be very quick indeed. But right now he's trying to attack Oliphant. He's trying to keep at bay Cammish. Over Hilltop, down towards Hislop comes the top two, split by 7/10 at the end of the previous lap. And although Butcher leads, he can't shake off Turkington as they paddle their way through Hislop. That is properly wet and nasty now.
Yeah, everything looking fairly even at the moment relative to front and rear wheel drivers. Ingram and Sutton get rubbing as they come out of the Knickerbrook chicane.
So Sutton then heading into Knickerbrook corner on the outside line. This is what happened at the Island Bend hairpin a lap ago. And you see contact, which is Jack Goff getting involved there with Bobby Thompson, and that's done damage to Jack's Volkswagen. So here are the race leaders then up to the end of lap 2 of 14. Josh Cook in the background, goes one side, goes the other. He tried this a lap ago. This time it works, but does he go out wide? No, he's got the job done. Can he stay there? Yes, he can, up dearly. So Josh Cook released from behind Oliphant. Now remember, no ballast in that Honda. Can he go after the top two? The lead gap is up slightly to 9/10 of a second now as Butcher starts to get away.
Yeah, the ballast makes slightly less difference in the wet. It's all about grip, but clearly Cook's car was working really well because he sold the dummy there to Oliphant and threw the car down the inside and stopped it and got it turned. So his car's working very well indeed.
So there is Rory Butcher, the race leader, came oh so close to success at Brands Hatch. But look at Josh Cook, because now he's on the back of Turkington, who's going defensive. So Butcher has just stormed away into the distance. Turkington dropping back as he has to defend from Josh Cook. Cook, therefore, needs to get past very soon indeed. Otherwise, Butcher is going to pull out a big gap. And Oliphant's lost another place. Look, Cammish is up to 4th now.
Yeah, Cammish got through as well, didn't he? I think on the run to the line, because he was shown as in front there. Or just after the line.
Turkington a little bit deep into his lot, compromises the run through the chicane out of Knickerbrook now. Is this where Cook tries to make a move, heading up Clay Hill? Well, he has a look one side, he'll look the other. He wants the inside line really for Druids, which is the next double apex right-hander. Is there a gap? Yes, there is. Here comes Cook, man on a mission. Through he goes, up into 2nd place.
I thought he was going to wait till a lodge corner at least, because Colin wouldn't have been expecting that, but that was a clean, decisive move at a difficult part on the track. So fantastic drive. There's plenty more laps for Cook to catch up to Butcher. His car certainly looks the quickest at the moment.
Absolutely. There is Cook's teammate, number 3, Tom Chilton, keeping Tom Ingram at bay. Ingram trying to find a way past and also fend off the challenge of Ash Sutton. Tom yet to have a touring car podium at Alton Park, the home track for Speedworks. Look at this move again from Cook.
Wow, inch precision, ducked out on the inside. There's never much room there. Usually the cars are in the middle of the road, but well, whether Turkington saw him or not, Cook was coming through, wasn't he?
And now Cammish will try the same thing in a similar Honda Civic, of course, the new FK8 shape. So straight away, Cook, released from the BMW, goes after Rory Butcher. He's got to make up 2.3 seconds against the race leader, and that is Ollie Brown, who is off the road, I think at Old Hall Corner. I fear that might be a safety car as Cammish goes to the outside of Turkington and Island Bend, but Turkington just comes out ahead.
Yeah, Turkington was never going to give him room, but safety car is out. But they will race to the board, so Cammish isn't quite done with Turkington yet.
And of course, this will bring Cook right onto the tail of Butcher as they slide their way out of his lots. There is Oliphant ahead of Matt Neal, ahead of Adam Morgan, ahead of Tom Chilton. So that is the battle all the way down to 9th place. Where is Mike Bushlin? He's come back 15th on the tail of Ollie Jackson there.
Yeah, I think they've slowed down now, so they've clearly seen the safety car boards. That looked like a nasty off for Ollie Brown.
There is confirmation, safety car on track, and it's partly the fact the car's in a dangerous place, but it's also, you can see there, the damage done to the tyre wall. Here's the incident, Tim.
Wait for the car to come in shot. Oh, he was off early. He was off very early there. I thought he was going to run wide and maybe go across the inside, but he came into Old Hairpin with the car already lost, didn't he? So must have locked up on the brakes.
So the car actually is drivable, but it's the damage to the barriers that would be the concern, because the tyre stacks need to be put in front of the actual Armco. So Ollie Brown will limp round to the pit lane.
Yeah, but at least it means we haven't got to do a lift or anything on the tricky wet grass. So Hopefully it's just the tyre stack and no post damage, in which case it'll be fairly quick. That took a fair old hit very well, didn't it, that BWCC?
Absolutely, tough old car. So that's 2 damaged cars, both for Team Howard, I'm afraid, before race 2. BMW pre-race, and now the Volkswagen during the race. The safety car lets Ollie Brown go to get back to the pit lane. And, of course, now the field slots into position behind the Porsche safety car going down towards Island Bend. Oh, time to catch breath, but
yeah,
it's been a lively first few laps.
It certainly has, and actually, as you said just before the stoppage, the big winner in this is Cook, because it closes that gap straight away onto the back of Butcher. And I mean, Josh Cook is running with absolutely zero weight on the car. Rory Butcher has 30 kilos, but 30 kilos in the wet, you're not really going to feel it. We're talking about, you know, a tenth or two per second per lap, so it should be an even fight. But Cook's car just looks so good. He looks to have really good mechanical grip. Whether he gambled on a wetter setup on the car, softer dampers, softer springs, softer roll bars to give more feel for the mechanical grip of the tyre, I don't know, but his car is working really well.
Safety car in this time, so it's a brief interlude from the safety car, so we'll be back racing this time around. There, look, the lights are out, and so Rory Butcher starts to weave around, trying to get some warmth into the tyres again, get the pressures up, and the car's now working their way up towards Druids. The other man that's in a big hurry, remember, is Stephen Jelly, because he was the best part of, what, 3/4 of a lap back. He's going like a man inspired to catch up, and then, of course, he can perhaps gain places, all of which will help his grid position for race 2, if nothing else.
Yeah, very much so. We're hearing on the radio that there's a black and orange warning flag for Matt Neal for a mechanical problem, which would require him to come in the pits. We'll see if that's true.
There into the pit lane comes Ollie Brown, so Teddy Gillen's men at Team Hard will go to work and try and turn that car around, ready for the second race. We are set to go racing, and Josh Cook is absolutely on his toes, isn't he, because he's not letting Rory Butcher get away. So up they come to the end of lap 5. We'll have an extra lap tagged on then for that safety car period. Green flags fly at a wet Alton Park, racing again. Round 7 of the British Touring Car Championship. Matt Neal for the pit lane. Leaders go across the timing line. It's 0.3 of a second between them, and it's game on now between Rory Butcher and Josh Cook for the race line. Race leaders Ingram and Sutton again rub going into Old Hall.
You've got 2 real hard chargers there in Ingram and Sutton. What a shame for Matt Neal. Remember, next race is his 700th race, and he was in an ideal position potentially to win it had he started near the front. He's going to have no chance now from the rear, so a real shame for Matt Neal.
Like to find out exactly why he's got that black and orange meatball flag. It's the mechanical warning flag as Butcher is having to go defensive. He was a little bit deep into Island Bend, and now look, Josh Cook comes right up onto the tail of him to have a go down towards his lops. It would be really bold to find a gap on the inside line there, and one does not present itself. But what Josh Cook can do, of course, is apply pressure to Rory Butcher, but he also knows he needs to get on with this, because now Dan Camish in 3rd place could be a threat to Cook. Down to 4th is Turkington as they climb the hill. Rory Butcher leads for the moment, but is he on borrowed time with a very quick Cook right behind him?
Yeah, just how tight Cook could go round the island hairpin shows the mechanical grip he's got. He's lining Butcher up for a dive into Lodge, definitely. Wait for it. Butcher's defending. Has he been sold the dummy? No, there's still, Cook's not going to go this lap.
But what about Old Hall Corner? That's coming up next if he can start the plan now. Look, Rory Butcher instantly covers off the inside line, meaning that Josh can't really get the inside coming out of Deerleaf to pounce at Old Hall. So this is going to be really interesting. Good defensive driving by Butcher. Up the inside goes Josh Cook. He's done it. He's got the lead. Unless he runs out wide. Butcher comes back at him. They rub coming out of Old Hall Corner. Cook has still got his nose in front as they head down through Dentons into Cascade. Butcher's back in front. Cook has got the inside line for Cascade. Fantastic racing. Cook slides a little, he holds it, he takes the lead back going through the left-hander, and Josh Cook comes out in front. What a fight.
That was very Shedden-esque, wasn't it, into Old Hairpin? Remember when Shedden diving out from behind cars really close, braking at the last minute? That was a brilliant move.
And look who has joined the party. Dan Camish, third, right on the back of Butcher, who straight away has to go defensive. McNeil is still in the pit lane, so he's lost a lap. But look now, Butcher is under attack from Camish. That might play into Cook's hands, except that in turn, Josh has got to get past traffic, which he will do. Is that Ollie Brown back in the race? I think it is. But either way, Josh Cook leads, and he's going to benefit from this squabble for second.
Yeah, Honda reliability hasn't been good this year at Brands Hatch. We had power steering problems for cars, we had engine problems for cars, and now we've got another problem for McNeil. And you just can't afford to give up race results through reliability issues when you've got someone like Turkington, who is so consistent. Across the grass at the chicane goes Sutton.
Well, that Mike Bushell that's off the road as well. For the last couple of qualifying sessions, Tim has been talking about that Infiniti of Ash Sutton looking like a rally car. He's finally decided he agrees with you, Tim, I think. Turkington versus Hill you're looking at. This is 4th and 5th now. Colin Turkington losing places as he goes through the race. Remember, 60 kilos of weight. Jake Hill goes through behind him and tries, does he, for the outside line heading into Old Hall. Hill's car, ballast free. Turkington is out wide and Jake Hill breezes past him.
Yeah, Turkington had a moment, just hit a little bit of standing water. You saw the car jiggle about. That meant he had to come out of the throttle and got no exit speed.
So Jake Hill through and instantly starts to edge away. So who's the next one to come up and challenge Turkington? Potentially Tom Chilton. The lead gap is 1.4 seconds. Josh Cook has done the fastest lap of the race as well. He was saying after qualifying he's got nothing to lose. Had a really bad, disappointing start to the season. But BTC Racing, the Burt Taylor, Steve Dudman team looking for good results here as we catch up on more dramas at Old Hall. And that is Aidan Moffat going around. People scatter, thankfully no contact.
Well, he's been finding that car a handful in the dry, so it's not going to get any better in the wet, is it, for Aidan Moffat?
And Ash Sutton's still struggling. He's got himself back onto the tail of Tom Ingram, despite the rallycross. Tom did have a couple of rallycross events a long, long time ago, but Ash Sutton getting himself back onto the tail of Toyota. There's another mechanical warning flag, perhaps not surprisingly, for Jack Goff because of earlier damage, so he is being brought to the pit lane as now Ingram comes up to have a go at Adam Morgan. So this is a battle for 7th place. Ingram is making progress. A sideways Morgan holds that, but Ingram out of the gloom will go to the inside, will he? No. Adam Morgan catches that, and it's Sutton who's on the attack to the inside of Ingram. Is there a gap? Not yet, but there is now. Turns the Toyota sideways, and Sutton backs out of it.
Well, that helped Adam Morgan. Morgan would not have been impressed with that little tap from Ingram round Druids. That's not the place you want to be hit behind, especially as you come over the crest. But then that further instant between Ingram and Sutton has just dropped them off the back of Morgan, giving him a bit of free space. But Ingram and Sutton, that's going to be the story of the day, I think, isn't it? The two of them.
Yes, whether they have ever been bosom buddies, you'll have to ask the people involved. But right now, there is nothing being asked in all of this as Sutton goes off the road and back on again. At least he did the right thing there. He didn't force the issue and go past because he knew he would have been given a penalty for that. So having made the contact, Ingram sideways, he backed out so he didn't try the pass. But he will try again any moment. Look, coming out of Island Bend, you just saw Jack Goff in the pit lane. So it's Goff and Bushell and Neal that are in the pits. Boardley never effectively started the race. Over hilltop comes Adam Morgan. He's still running 7th in the Mercedes, the Carlu Triple R Mac Tools car, run by the family firm, Sicily Motorsport, ahead of another local team, Speedworks, ahead of the Laser Tools Racing, BMR Engineering, Infiniti, and Ash Sutton's dropped back a length there.
Yeah, it just shows how the weather has changed this up a little bit as we see Hill now has closed that gap to Camish. He's on the back of Camish, you know, we've had 5 of the last 6 races won by rear-wheel drive BMWs, and now the top rear-wheel drive car is in 5th place. The weather has come to the help of the front-wheel drive car.
And just as Turkington has been losing places, so has Oliphant. He's down in 12th place now, having of course gone very effectively over the first couple of racing laps. Right, Rory Butcher goes through. He's 2.4 seconds behind Josh Cook. Dan Camish taking Jake Hill with him at 3rd and 4th. Now, Hill's progress is very, very good indeed. He's lapping quicker than both Camish and Butcher ahead of him. Remember, a little while ago, he was quite a long way back, having to get past Turkington. He's absolutely flown onto the tail of Camish.
He really has, but I mean, I have to say, Cook's pace is by far and away the quickest car out there. He was virtually half a second quicker than Butcher on the last lap, and as you said, he already set the fastest lap. So Cook's car is very good, but Hill is coming into his own as this race nears the latter part of its laps.
So can we get Hill onto the podium? Can Camish do anything about Butcher? It's 11 tenths second to 3rd. It's only half a second third to fourth. There are the gaps. So Cook out on his own. Cammish closing on Butcher, taking Hill with him. Fifth is Turkington, and look at the way he's being reeled in by Chilton, who in turn is not far ahead of the Morgan, Ingram, Sutton trio. And there, Chris Smiley shouting, "Wait for me," running 10th. His teammate Senna Proctor is 11th, and the next battle pack 12 is Oliphant, Jackson, Crease, and then you've got Bobby Thompson, who is in 15th place, up from the very back of the grid. Mega effort by Bobby Thompson.
Yeah, remember they were in the pits, weren't they, for tyre changes, but Oliphant is definitely struggling. He's slipped back, hasn't he? Back to 12th position. They're all closing up.
Jake Hill for the inside against Dan Cammish. No, not really. Not this time at any rate. Colin Turkington, of course, there, banking points as best he can, being caught by Chilton. And Adam Morgan's Mercedes keeping the Toyota, similar shaped car in a sense, the Corolla at bay of Tom Ingram. Ash Sutton waiting for an opportunity to present next in the queue as he goes through in 9th place, but Morgan is doing a good job thus far of defending, except now there's a gap to the inside and Ingram will seize the opportunity, but will he get the pass done because they come out of the corner side by side. Morgan over the new concrete on the outside of the road, but Ingram does go through, heading downhill. That puts him up into 7th.
Yeah, now Sutton will be keen to get through as well. They know they're a bit quicker than Morgan because they closed up on him twice now. Sutton's gone for a big, long turn, late turn into Cascades for a run out, but Morgan is looking to defend. Sutton will go round the outside and try and get a bit of a cutback and some better traction. Interesting, Sutton runs out very wide on the exit there, trying to put the power down on the rear-wheel drive cars. The front-wheel drive cars trying to get the steering lock released as quick as possible, come out quite tight and get the wheel straight. That gives them the biggest footprint for the front tyres to put the power down.
It's fascinating, isn't it, to see the way that the different shapes and size and configuration of car work at different venues. Sutton again takes a tighter line coming out of Knickerbrook corner there, trying to get the run up the hill. Cammish in the meantime is fending off Jake Hill. There is Turkington still thinking points. He's also shedding quite a lot of ballast going into race 2, whereas Josh Cook is set to gain an absolute truckload.
Yeah, absolutely, but this is another typical Colin Turkington performance. It's a measured performance. He's taking the points. It's not the ideal conditions for his car, but he's going to get a good result out of it.
Ingram getting away as Morgan defends from Sutton now. The race leaders are on to lap 12. We're back up to 15 laps because of the safety car lap, and we have a black flag now for Jack Goff. He was given a meatball flag earlier. Now it is a black flag saying you must come into the pit lane at the word of the race officials. So downhill goes Adam Morgan. He's in that 8th place. Ash Sutton behind him. Chris Smiley rounds out the top 10, and the lead gap Cook to Butcher is still 2.6 seconds.
Yeah, not so easy for Sutton to get past as Ingram, even though he's a bit faster. The places he needs to be quicker, it's very difficult. Look, he catches on the brakes, but then out of the corners, Morgan's got a good... Watch him unlock the steering. Look, the steering wheel's straight now, whereas Sutton is still trying to get the power down. A little bit closer this time. Wait for a lunge.
Is it going to come at his lops? Adam Morgan covers off the inside line, but even if there's half a gap, Ash Sutton might well chance it, but he doesn't this time around. Ingram is onto the tail of Chilton now, and they are 2 seconds adrift, just under on Colin Turkington, running out of laps. And Sutton again tries the inside against Adam Morgan coming out of Knickerbrook. Up Clay Hill now, that steep climb, up past the water tower, then towards Druids. And Josh Cook, race leader, finally find some wood to touch. Looks like he could be on for a good points haul after a really frustrating start to the season. There, again, 10th and 11th, the Hyundai's going strongly, which is really good to see. Sam Osborne in replay goes wide at Island Bend, runs out wide, but that could have been a whole lot worse.
Yeah, brakes a bit deep and just got his left front wheel on the grass, didn't he? So he couldn't turn at that point. Just the gaps ebbing and flowing, the Butcher Cammish Hill gap coming down a bit.
Now, we had just had Dan Cammish do the fastest lap of the race, but now Tom Ingram has taken that from him. So no longer is Josh Cook the quickest man out there. Cammish is speeding up, but Ingram is lapping faster than anybody. And now that he's been released from behind Morgan, he's hunting down Chilton, who in turn has dropped away from Turkington. That gap is wide, but Ingram now becoming the man to watch to see what else he can salvage in the last few laps of the race. He's on the tail of Chilton, heading down now towards Island Bend.
Yeah, that's because the drivers have now got a real feel for the grip. The conditions have stayed pretty much the same throughout, but the drivers have got a great feel for it. Josh Cook at the front has got a 3-second gap, so he doesn't need to push. Ingram was pushing to catch up that gap.
and he might yet gain another place. We are on to lap 13. There is the Honda Toyota fight. Chilton ahead of Ingram, so he started 14th. He's now up to 7th. So it's been a good effort this by Tom Ingram, but Bobby Thompson, as I say, from 27th on the grid up into 15th, into the points. A very, very impressive drive indeed. Always a great leveller. And right now, that's Nicholas Hamilton, who is off the road, approaching Island Bend. He'll get away with that and rejoin. But Chilton having to defend from Ingram. There are somewhat culinary top two, Cook and Butcher, down towards Lodge, with in third spot, Camish still under attack from Hill.
There's all three Team Hard CCs in the walls in this race, isn't it? Unfortunately for them. I hope they brought more than 2 spares of everything. They might need a fair bit more than that. This is only the first race of the day. This was Nick Hamilton. Oh, he hit that pretty hard. That was too deep into Island Hairpin, trying to get the car stopped and turned, and he just ran out of road. But those tyre stacks weigh a fair bit, so I wouldn't be surprised if there was some damage underneath the bodywork there.
So they've got 2 more races today. They've got 3 in a week's time. So it's going to be pretty frantic. They've got the shakedown session at Knock Hill on the Friday afternoon. But you look here at Josh Cook, who is on his 14th of 15 laps. It's been a long time coming. The main, can't even say victory, just good result really for BTC Racing this year. But finally, it looks like Bert Taylor and Steve Dudman's team is going to have a good result with Josh Cook leading. Tom Chilton is in the top 6 as well, but only just, look, because Tom Ingram is right there behind him as they come over the brow. And look how much they've closed on Colin Turkington. That gap is coming down and down and down.
Yeah, no doubt Colin is struggling here in these conditions. Ingram's looking all over the back of Chilton. He's going to find a way. He's going to find a way sooner or later, I'm sure. Has he even got an overlap here as they go up to Druids? No, he hasn't.
It's close though, wasn't it? And he's not given up. So you saw how it is possible to overtake at Druids if you're Josh Cook. Tom Ingram will perhaps line up to have a go at Lodge. So the move has started. He's almost in the back of the Honda. There's just not room. Where does he go now? He wants the inside line, but Chilton comes off that nice and early. Tom Ingram, number 80 in the Toyota, number 3, Tom Chilton there in the Honda Civic, turns into Lodge Corner. The leader, Josh Cook, starts his last lap 2 seconds to the good. Up dear lead, Chilton fends off Ingram. On to the last lap they go.
Cook blew the start and he was clearly angry, and that was all the incentive he needed to get back to the front, and he's driven an exemplary race. So hats off to Josh Cook and the BTC team. If he gets round this final lap, he's going to pull off his first victory of 2020.
He took his first BTC Racing win at Brands at the start of last year in a wet race. That was partly down to tyre choice. There's been no real need to choose. You had to go wets for this because of the track conditions, but Cook leading, whereas his teammate Tom Chilton is having to make this car oh so wide. Ingram is still right there behind him as they come through the hairpin at Island Bend. But the Toyota needs to be a length or 2 even closer to have a proper go. Third isn't yet decided. Camish and Hill separated by only a couple of lengths. There is Turkington, who is still being reeled in by the Chilton-Ingram scrap. And in the background, Adam Morgan has shaken off Ash Sutton to infinity, which was right up behind the Mercedes, look, has gone AWOL.
Yeah, a little bit of a mistake from Ingram coming into that corner and gave a bit of relief to Tom Chilton. Tom's brother Max is racing in the Indianapolis 500 later on today. So a busy weekend for the family across the Atlantic.
So it is going to be Josh Cook with a corner to go, who's on target for the race win. This is Lodge. He'll get the car up dearly, head towards the checkered flag for BTC Racing. It is a first victory of the season for Josh Cook, who comes across the line to win after a great drive at Alton Park. Rory Butcher, pole position, still not converted to a race win, but he takes second. Dan Camish hands on to third. Jake Hill bags fourth. Colin Turkington fifth, and sixth. With a flash of the lights is Tom Chilton from Tom Ingram, seventh. Eighth goes the way of Adam Morgan. And then for ninth place, well, Ash Sutton was right up behind him, as I say. He's yet to get to the timing line, and he does take ninth with Chris Smiley 10th. Andy Neat here is on the back of Bobby Thompson, who is on the back of Ollie Jackson as they come across the line. But behind Smiley, 11th is Senna Proctor, 12th Michael Priest, 13th Tom Oliphant, 14th Ollie Jackson, and Bobby Thompson 15th from 27th on the grid. But a really impressive drive that by Josh Cook. He was so feisty to begin with, and having got the lead, didn't put a wheel wrong. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, great drive, and he'll be very pleased. I dare say there'll be a few drivers complaining about their car setup, but there was so little time to sort things out.
private play. Tim, surely not.
Yes, they do, trust me. It's never their fault. But if we get more of these conditions in race 2, we may get a more interesting race. Well, I say more interesting, it was an interesting race, but we may get a more even spread.
Well, Josh Cook's winning margin was down slightly at the end because he was doing just enough to make sure he brought home the proverbial bacon, but Josh Cook the winner by 2 seconds from Rory Butcher, and Dan Camish coming home in 3rd place. Slightly curious to know why Ash Sutton lost 7.5 seconds towards the end, because, as I say, he was right on the tail of Adam Morgan.
Yeah, I saw a slight mistake from him just coming into the chicane, but so maybe he had a car issue, I don't know, or maybe made another mistake off camera, but
the results of round 7 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship from Alton Park, won by Josh Cook, Rory Butcher coming home 2nd, Dan Camish 3rd, the best of the manufacturer entries ahead of Jake Hill and Colin Turkington 5th. 6th, just Tom Chilton ahead of Tom Ingram, Adam Morgan taking 8th from Ash Sutton, and Chris Smiley rounding out the top 10. Senna Proctor bags 11th ahead of Michael Priest and then Tom Oliphant. Ollie Jackson 14th, and after a great charge from the rear of the grid, Bobby Thompson takes the last point. Andy Neate is 16th from Sam Osborne and Aidan Moffat after a spin. James Gornall 19th, and Jack Butel rounds out the top 20. Stephen Jelly, after his bad start, 21st. Nicholas Hamilton was in the war, so was Mike Bushell and Ollie Brown. Matt Neal heading for the pits. Jack Goff was given a black flag. Carl Boardley never really got to the start of the race. Very difficult conditions, but a great drive for the race winner, Josh Cook, and he'll tell us all about it when we come back to Alton Park after the break.